In the 1920s, Josephine Baker, an African-American singer, dancer, and actress, moved to France and became one of the most famous entertainers in the world. But beyond her dazzling performances, she was also a spy for the French resistance during World War II. Using her celebrity status, she smuggled secret messages written in invisible ink on her sheet music and carried information across borders. Later in life, Baker was also a major figure in the civil rights movement. She refused to perform for segregated audiences in the U.S. and even spoke at the March on Washington in 1963 alongside Martin Luther King Jr.
And now, to show the international character of the struggle in which we are currently engaged, I would like to introduce to you a person who, though far in residence from our shores, has come all the way from her home to be with us today, Miss Josephine Baker.
I want you to know that this is the happiest day of my entire life. And as you all must know, I have had a very long life, and I'm 60 years old. The results today of seeing you all together is a sight for sore eyes. You're together as salt and pepper, just as you should be, just as I've always wanted you to be, and peoples of the world have always wanted you to be. You are a united people at last, because without unity, there cannot be any victory. I'm glad that in my homeland where I was born and love and respect, I'm glad to see this day come to pass. This day, because you are on the eve of complete victory. And tomorrow, time will do the rest. I want you to know also how proud I am to be here today. And after so many long years of struggle, fighting here and elsewhere for your rights, our rights, the rights of humanity, the rights of man, I'm glad that you have accepted me to come. I didn't ask you, I didn't have to. I just came because it was my duty. And I'm going to say again, you are on the eve of complete victory. Continue on. You can't go wrong. The world is behind you.
Friends and family, you know I have lived a long time and I have come a long way. And you must know now that what I did originally for myself. Then later, as these things began happening to me, I wondered if they were happening to you, and then I knew they must be. And I knew that you had no way to defend yourselves, as I had. And as I continued to do the things I did, and to say the things I said, they began to beat me. Not beat me, mind you, with a club, but you know, I have seen that done too, but they beat me with their pens, with their writings. And friends, that is much worse. When I was a child and they burned me out of my home, I was frightened and I ran away. Eventually I ran far away. It was to a place called France. Many of you have been there, and many have not. But I must tell you, ladies and gentlemen, in that country I never feared. It was like a fairyland place. And I need not tell you that wonderful things happened to me there. Now I know that all you children don't know who Josephine Baker is, but you ask Grandma and Grandpa and they will tell you. You know what they will say. Why, she was a devil. And you know something, why, they are right. I was too. I was a devil in other countries, and I was a little devil in America too. But I must tell you, when I was young in Paris, strange things happened to me. And these things had never happened to me before. When I left a long time ago, the conductor directed me to the last car. And you all know what that means. But when I ran away, yes, when I ran away to another country, I didn't have to do that. I could go into any restaurant I wanted to, and I could drink water any place I wanted to, and I didn't have to go to a colored toilet either, and I have to tell you it was nice, and I got used to it, and I liked it, and I wasn't afraid anymore that someone would shout at me and say, "Go to the end of the line." But you know, I rarely ever used that word. You also know that it has been shouted at me many times. So over there, far away, I was happy, and because I was happy I had some success, and you know that too. Then after a long time, I came to America to be in a great show for Mr. Ziegfeld, and you know Josephine was happy. You know that. Because I wanted to tell everyone in my country about myself. I wanted to let everyone know that I made good, and you know too that that is only natural. But on that great big beautiful ship, I had a bad experience. A very important star was to sit with me for dinner, and at the last moment I discovered she didn't want to eat with a colored woman. I can tell you it was some blow. And I won't bother to mention her name, because it is not important, and anyway, now she is dead. And when I got to New York way back then, I had other blows, when they would not let me check into the good hotels because I was colored, or eat in certain restaurants. And then I went to Atlanta, and it was a horror to me. And I said to myself, my God, I am Josephine, and if they do this to me, what do they do to the other people in America? You know, friends, that I do not lie to you when I tell you I have walked into the palaces of kings and queens and into the houses of presidents. And much more. But I could not walk into a hotel in America and get a cup of coffee, and that made me mad. And when I get mad, you know that I open my big mouth. And then look out, 'cause when Josephine opens her mouth, they hear it all over the world. So I did open my mouth, and you know I did scream, and when I demanded what I was supposed to have and what I was entitled to, they still would not give it to me. So then they thought they could smear me, and the best way to do that was to call me a communist. And you know, too, what that meant. Those were dreaded words in those days, and I want to tell you also that I was hounded by the government agencies in America, and there was never 1 ounce of proof that I was a communist. But they were mad. They were mad because I told the truth. And the truth was that all I wanted was a cup of coffee. But I wanted that cup of coffee where I wanted to drink it, and I had the money to pay for it, so why shouldn't I have it where I wanted it? Friends and brothers and sisters, that is how it went. And when I screamed loud enough, they started to open that door just a little bit, and we all started to be able to squeeze through it. Not just the colored people, but the others as well, the other minorities too, and the Mexicans, and the Indians, both those here in the United States and those from India. Now I am not going to stand in front of all of you today and take credit for what is happening now. I cannot do that. But I want to take credit for telling you how to do the same thing, and when you scream, friends, I know you will be heard. And you will be heard now. But you young people must do one thing, and I know you have heard this story 1,000 times from your mothers and fathers, like I did from my mama. I didn't take her advice. But I accomplished the same in another fashion. You must get an education. You must go to school, and you must learn to protect yourself. And you must learn to protect yourself with the pen, and not the gun. Then you can answer them, and I can tell you, and I don't want to sound corny, but friends, the pen really is mightier than the sword. I am not a young woman now, friends. My life is behind me. There is not too much fire burning inside me. And before it goes out, I want you to use what is left to light that fire in you. So that you can carry on, and so that you can do those things that I have done. Then, when my fires have burned out, and I go where we all go someday, I can be happy. You know I have always taken the rocky path. I never took the easy one, but as I get older, and as I knew I had the power and the strength, I took that rocky path, and I tried to smooth it out a little. I wanted to make it easier for you. I want you to have a chance at what I had. But I do not want you to have to run away to get it. And mothers and fathers, if it is too late for you, think of your children. Make it safe here so they do not have to run away, for I want for you and your children what I had. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends and family, I have just been handed a little note, as you probably say. It is an invitation to visit the President of the United States in his home, the White House. I am greatly honored. But I must tell you that a colored woman, or, as you say it here in America, a black woman, is not going there. It is a woman. It is Josephine Baker. This is a great honor for me. Someday I want you children out there to have that great honor too. And we know that that time is not someday. We know that that time is now. I thank you, and may God bless you. And may He continue to bless you long after I am gone.
Josephine Baker was an incredible woman with a life full of groundbreaking achievements. Born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1906, she grew up in poverty, but found her way to the stage at a young age. By the time she was a teenager, she was performing in vaudeville shows, and in the mid-1920s, she moved to Paris, where she became an international star. Her famous banana dance at the Folies Bergère made her an icon of the jazz age, and she was one of the first black women to achieve worldwide fame. But Baker was much more than just a performer. During World War II, she joined the French resistance against Nazi Germany. She used her status to move freely across borders, carrying secret messages for the Allies. She also housed refugees and helped in the fight against the occupation of France. For her bravery, she was awarded the Croix de Guerre and the Legion of Honor, one of France's highest military honors. After the war, she became deeply involved in the civil rights movement in the U.S. She refused to perform for segregated audiences and was a vocal advocate for racial equality. She even adopted 12 children from different backgrounds, calling them her Rainbow Tribe, to show the world that people of different races could live together in harmony. Even in her later years, she never stopped performing. In 1975, at the age of 68, she staged a comeback in Paris to celebrate her 50-year career. Just days later, she passed away, leaving behind a legacy of courage, talent, and activism. Her influence was so profound that in 2021, she became the first black woman inducted into France's Pantheon, the country's highest honor for national heroes. Josephine Baker's early life in the U.S. was shaped by poverty and the harsh realities of racism. She was born Freda Josephine McDonald in St. Louis, Missouri in 1906. Growing up, she experienced segregation and extreme racial discrimination. Her family was poor, and as a child, she often worked as a maid for white families, where she was treated terribly. She even witnessed the horrors of the East St. Louis race massacre in 1917, where white mobs attacked and killed black residents, leaving a lasting impact on her. Despite these hardships, Baker found joy in performing. She started dancing on the streets for money and eventually joined a vaudeville troupe as a teenager. By the early 1920s, she made it to New York City during the Harlem Renaissance, performing in shows like Shuffle Along and the Chocolate Dandies. However, despite her talent, she faced constant racism in the entertainment industry. She was often cast in comedic or degrading roles that played into racial stereotypes, and she struggled to gain respect as a serious performer. The racism in America also extended beyond the stage. Many theaters were segregated, and even as a rising star, she was often denied entry to restaurants, hotels, and other public spaces. Realizing that her opportunities were limited in the U.S., she took a chance when she was invited to Paris in 1925 to perform in La Revue Negre. In Paris, everything changed. The French viewed her as an exotic, electrifying performer rather than simply a black woman. She became the toast of the city, performing her famous danse sauvage in a skirt made of bananas at the Folies Bergère. Unlike in America, she could enter any venue, walk freely without fear of segregation, and even socialize with European elites. While some say she left simply for better opportunities, others argue that she was blackballed from the American entertainment industry because she refused to conform to racist expectations. She had been typecast in roles she despised, and Hollywood wasn't willing to give her the same chances white actresses had. Frustrated with the racism in show business, she embraced France as her new home, where she could express herself freely and be treated with dignity. Her decision to leave the U.S. was not just about career growth. It was about escaping a system that constantly tried to keep her down. Paris gave her the freedom she was denied in her homeland, and she spent much of her life fighting for equality, both in Europe and America. Josephine Baker delivered a powerful speech at the March on Washington on August 28, 1963, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. She was the only official female speaker that day. Here's a part of what she said. I have walked into the palaces of kings and queens and into the houses of presidents, but I could not walk into a hotel in America and get a cup of coffee, and that made me mad. And when I get mad, you know that I open my big mouth. And then look out, because when Josephine opens her mouth, they hear it all over the world. She spoke about her life, her decision to leave America, and why she returned to fight for civil rights. She wore her French military uniform that day, symbolizing both her service to France and her commitment to justice. Josephine Baker was originally buried in Monaco at the Cimetière de Monaco after her death in 1975. However, in 2021, she was honored by France and reinterred in the Panthéon in Paris, making her the first Black woman to receive this distinction. Her remains remain in Monaco, but a symbolic plaque was placed in the Panthéon to recognize her contributions to France and the world. France honored Josephine Baker in many ways, but one of the most significant was her induction into the Panthéon in Paris on November 30th, 2021. The Panthéon is a national monument where France commemorates its greatest heroes, and Baker became the first Black woman and only the 6th woman overall to receive this honor. During the ceremony, French President Emmanuel Macron praised her as a symbol of freedom and resilience, recognizing her achievements as an entertainer, a war hero, and a civil rights activist. While her physical remains stayed in Monaco, a symbolic coffin filled with soil from St. Louis, Paris, and her Château de Milan's home in France was placed in the Panthéon. France had already recognized her bravery long before this. She received the Croix de Guerre and the Legion of Honor for her work with the French resistance during World War II. She was also deeply loved by the French people, who saw her as an adopted national treasure. Her Panthéon induction solidified her legacy not just as a performer, but as a fighter for justice, equality, and freedom. It was a powerful moment, reminding the world of her courage and the barriers she broke. If you enjoyed the video, kindly hit that subscribe bell and give it a like. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you.